I'm Anne Kemp, I'm a mum with 3 kids, but my roles, I'm a director at Atkins, I'm leading the BIM strategy and development. I head up the BIM Forum for Institutes of Civil Engineers with James Brayshaw of Ordnance Survey, and I'm vice chair of the Association of Geographic Information. In my spare time, I'm doing an MSc, wait for it, in coaching and behavioural change. Now, why the heck would I do that? Because as we've heard today, BIM is a major disruptor. It's kind of taking over our lives. We kind of need to take control back, don't we? But it is going to need behavioural change. It is going to affect culture. And I'm hoping that in the next, probably I've spoken too long already, but in the next 25 minutes or so, we'll cover a number of interesting points, which I think then Paul will delight in ripping apart in his glorious style. I'm jesting at you, of course. So what is BIM? I usually say at Atkins, if anybody tells me BIM is 3D modelling, I'll shoot them. That's a little bit harsh, but I think it's just what we've inherited of what now BIM is associated with. It's very heavily associated with Revit. But I absolutely punch home that BIM is about starting with the end in mind, and it is whole life cycle information management. So what is the purpose? It is not information management or modelling for its own sake. There is actually an outcome, and it should be the outcome which should be driving this. So I actually think that all the activity and all the interest there is around BIM gives us a massive opportunity to completely revolutionise the construction industry. And I know that Paul's going to talk about that, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. But it is, what is the point of all of this? And actually, it is not just about a building. Sorry, architects, if that's offensive, but it's not. It's the context. It might be a campus, but it might actually be on a regional basis. But from a UK perspective, actually, it's the whole of the infrastructure. So if we're going to put an airport down in the southeast somewhere, what are the ramifications? Why is it there? What does the infrastructure need to be adjusted to actually take that on board? How resilient is it? What about the flooding? What about hurricanes, et cetera, et cetera? We're talking about a system of systems, really. And we can do this if we actually engage with the technology intelligently. So, as I say, BIM is purposeful management of information right through the whole life cycle. And it could be right up at a national and international level. We're tending to talk about it from a building micro level, but from a geographic point of view, that's the delights for me, is that we can be thinking big here. So it's not just for a building, and heaven help us, it's not just for the design and construction either. And I'll discuss that a little bit more, but it will be a quantum leap in behaviours. We need to be linking up very, very different types of people. So the procurement guys absolutely need to be involved with BIM. They need to know what the purpose of these projects are, what drives it, and make sure that that then encourages the right behaviours across the supply chain and through to the client, and to then, so the people who are actually going to be running, operating, maintaining those facilities. So to BIM or not to BIM? That is the question. I don't think it is. I'd agree with Graham. What is the purpose? Let's not let the technology take over. This is a quite well-used slide by our good friends Autodesk. And as Graham showed and Liz did earlier, there are really good case studies showing the advantages of embracing technology in the right way. But we are still in the world of interrupted flow of information, and we like to think that it's because of the silos of technology, but a lot of it is around silos of disciplines and characters' roles within the industry as well. We don't trust each other. Why ever would we? To get to collaborative working, we have to change that. Again, if we're going to manage the information for the sake of it, forget it. There has to be a point, whether it be sustainability, carbon, lean construction, resilience. We have to know why we need that information. What is it that we need? Who's driving that? Is it the architect? Does he really know? Are we having the right discussions with the facilities managers, with the ops guys, with the train drivers, whoever it is, but the end user? Have we actually engaged? Have we listened to them properly? Have we posed the right questions? So why are we getting in a flurry now? By 2016, all publicly funded projects will have to use level 2 BIM. Now, Liz has actually done a great job of presenting what level 2 BIM means. And people are starting to really engage now, because actually it's only around the corner. And as Graham says, there's quite a few of us who feel a little bit frustrated because, you know, we want to be here. As a GIS person, I've been in the web database environment for quite a while. So it kind of feels like my wings are being clipped, having to go back into file-based collaboration. But hey, guess what? It's because we don't actually know how to engage and talk to each other yet. We're not ready to truly go into integrated collaborative mode until we get this right. This is a picture coming out of the publicly available specification, which actually tells you what level 2 BIM is, sort of precursor to a British standard. So this is what the government is defining as BIM. They are saying it's building information management. And they are trying, you may not like the diagram, but they are trying to illustrate that it is whole life cycle. You have to know what the client is actually requiring, what the facilities management people require. Make sure you have no chasm in the flow of information through, because those facilities managers have to be able to access that intelligent data. No flat files, no loss of understanding. It has to be able to be delivered effectively and efficiently. So Francis Maud was talking again on Monday at the Construction Summit. It's very, very clear they're serious about this. The budgets have been set again for this next year. So there's 9 departments who are going to be trained as intelligent clients to require level 2 BIM. There are bids going out right now, HS2, MOJ, as Graham was saying earlier, that are specifying level 2 BIM. It's happening in the Middle East as well. So Francis is quite right that there is an opportunity for us to actually sort ourselves out in the UK and be able to then take it out to the Middle East, etc. I lost my job as network chair of Integrated Digital Solutions 2 years ago. I was absolutely gutted. That was my identity. And the reason why it got taken away was because we just purchased PBSJ, Americans. And of course, the Americans know all about BIM, don't they? They're much better than we are. I usually have a holiday in August, because I've got 3 children, and they're very valuable to me. I'm going to go to Florida for 3 days during that time this year, because the Americans have phoned up and said, we've cracked BIM for architecture, but we don't know how to do it for disciplines. It's quite a bittersweet pill, that one. But anyway, so I will be going over and talking to the infrastructure guys. So what is BIM? Let's revisit it. In the glory days, that I'm actually quite fond of, or do you remember the rotary pens? Lovely when they were doing your maths and stuff, until you went wrong and then you had to get your scalpel and scratch it all out. But the beauty of that was it is very social, and it didn't cut anybody off through technology. So the wisdom and the intelligence of the older guys and the older generation and of the facilities guys. They could come round the drawing board and they could talk. They said, look, we saw that in the field. These are the issues. So it was truly collaborative. And then CAD came along. And suddenly the technology took over. Parent-adult-child relationship. Who's in control here? Are we engaging with the technology as adult to adult? Or is CAD driving it as the parent and we're doing what we're told? When we're using an electronic data management system, is it an adult to adult relationship? Or is it driving it and we do what we're told? These are some of the pitfalls of technology. But what a great opportunity, because with BIM, if we engage intelligently and if we keep our brains engaged, then actually we can get to one shared version of the truth. It can become the glories of virtual drawing board again. So one of the contractors has got a massive 3D screen, and you can talk around it, and indeed you've got the 3D ones in BGS as well, where you can really be discussing and getting into the design, the virtual design. Really great conversations get stimulated by that. But again, just as Graham said earlier, you do have the dangers of lonely BIM still working as a discipline, because the MEP guy doesn't understand a word of that architect. What is he saying? I don't call a duct. You know, my duct doesn't mean the same as him, and zone certainly doesn't mean the same as what he just said. He's on a totally different planet. I'll do it my own way. And then limp BIM, lonely limp BIM. Well, limp BIM, of course, is using the technology, but using it with a CAD mindset. We are in serious danger of that at the moment. Again, what's driving this? The technology, the technicians, or the engineers and the architects who are really actually thinking about the whole life cycle and the end purpose. It is interesting, isn't it, is that, you know, huge respect for the CAD technicians, some great talented people who do want to move into BIM. But we do have the opportunity now of converging the workflows of the engineering architect processes with the production of the deliverables. And that would be something fantastic to see. The chimp BIM paradox. Yesterday I was told to go download the chimp paradox. And the chimp paradox, very, very simplistic actually. It's a bit, but anyway, apparently all of us have a chimp in us. In our limbic here, it's our emotions. We had it since we were babies. And whenever we go off on one and get angry, it's our chimp in control. Frontal is the adult. It's the human who rationalizes. And in some ways, when I was reading this, I had a bit of a giggle, so indulge me. Don't get insulted. But it was like, actually, that sounds a bit like the modelers versus the management. The modeling, the creative side, the management, actually be able to control that in a way that it delivers what's needed. Because we can all get really excited by the 3D modeling. It looks really sexy, very visual, very easy to understand. But if we haven't managed that, rationalized it, thought about what the end purpose is, you know, it could be wrong data, inappropriate data, it could be rubbish data. So whatever is the point. So it's almost like there is this paradox again with the BIM world. So getting our frontal lobe into gear here, and apologies in some ways because it's a bit hard work, but BS 1192 is there to actually control the way that we share our information, whether it be 3D models, whether it be CAD, whether it be documents, our health and safety manuals. All of this should be such that we're not, for the moment anyway, I'll come back to that, working simultaneously on each other's models and getting out of sync. So, you know, so the architect has just thrown over his bit of the model and said, here, that's what I've thought about for the moment. Go on, MEP, guy, you can do whatever you want, and the structures guy, and suddenly the architects decided to change his kitchen door to actually a French door because clients changed his mind. But the MEP and structures are busy working away at the old drawing and they're out of sync. So easy to do, particularly when you're actually in the same room as you do your informal sharing. This is actually getting the roles and responsibilities into place. So instead of it being somebody, a CAD technician who just informally starts sharing, it's actually the right people. So the engineers who know what the consequences are of making a change and why it's so important to have that control. And a bit like Liz was saying is, and the whole PAC relationship, parent, adult, child, and so forth, I don't think that this works if you just toss an electronic data management system into play at an office without the guys really understanding and owning and experiencing what that means. So we have been running workshops at ICE and AGI where we actually pull people in. Could be for a particular project, so launching a project and then regularly through the life of the project, or just the supply chain. And actually it's become really fun. We're doing it quite a lot now. So we do set it up. It's all very crude. So I'm called the Mad BIM woman now because I think it's going to be high technology. And then they see brown paper and string marking out 30, 60, 90 stage and Mars bars. And if they're really lucky at the end of the project, there's a bottle of champagne, but that depends on the project director. And then we actually get them to actually walk through a project. So they've got their swim lanes, disciplines, and then they have to figure out how they're going to actually progress the design, when they need to share, when they need to integrate. And that role play, that very uncomfortable though it can be, brings out surfaces some fascinating behavior and language difficulties, which if you can understand that, can really help in the success of the project. So I'm afraid some people may groan, but I say, we say that every great building deserves to be built twice. Once virtually and once for real. I believe every great project deserves to be run twice. Once as role play, simulated if you like, and second for real. Because you're really starting to bring out the relationships and understanding what the implications are for moving into this sort of technology. And just as a little bit of an aside here, I got the project director to be client, and he really didn't like that. But 15 minutes later, he stopped the project. He said, excuse the language, I'm being recorded, aren't I? So, expletive, nobody's come to see me yet. This is really weird. I'm not sure I like this experience, but boy, it's brought a few things home. And we had very similar things with the disciplines as well. So MEP wanted to do lots of design concurrent, through the first 30% to get to the basis of design. And that was really messing up the architects and the MEP and the CNS. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And actually talking to each other and saying, why? What's your issue? What's your problem? What is it you need? Really helped us to understand what would become a much better process and a leaner process as well. So we've actually put design principles in place, and we're now converging those into BIM. I suspect I'm taking too long here, so I'll go over this because it's quite interesting. We were talking about REBA earlier. Actually, things are happening on that front I'll come to in just a moment. But when we come back to it, what we've always done is we've produced information to make things safely, sustainably. Oh, another S word, isn't it? But actually, it should be absolutely for the operation and maintenance side of things. So the emphasis in the industry at the moment is still wrong, isn't it? We've got to engage the procurement people. We've got to engage the facilities management people. Because if you look at it, and again, this is a skewed diagram because we always do it by time, don't we? But actually, savings, 75%, we reckon, is actually in the operation. And yet the effort at the moment is all concentrated here. We want to put much, much less emphasis onto this and be thinking much more with the car industry and so forth about the operation. What is it that's required there? And the value engineering, again, I think, Liz, you were bringing this up. this is where, sorry Keir, sorry Graham, but this is where the contractors have always had fun, making profit just before construction. But you know, you've also got the leaders, sorry Graham, who have the foresight to realise that actually what great opportunities there are to, oh, I'm going the wrong way now, to do your virtual building design here. But contractually, from the point of view of being paid, that has some implications we've really got to think about. Fascinating for us as Atkins, as an infrastructure consultancy, we are now seeing at bid stage being given 3D models. And in this particular example for Gatwick, we were handed over models which had 3,000 odd clashes. Now, interesting for me, if there had been the correct collaboration following BS 1192, those clashes shouldn't have been possible. So my first point would be something went wrong there. But actually, you know, we do have great opportunities if the right behaviours are in place and the collaboration is working correctly, as Liz was discussing, to really start moving forward and realising the benefits. So this is, you know, a classic detection of the baggage handling in Gatwick. I hadn't realised it's all in the ceilings and it's like a water park. Yeah, it'd be brilliant. The kids would have a great time. You know, the major clashes, because actually they have to have clearance so that if you've got your skis going through or whatever, it doesn't get knocked by the services that are going over. So hugely complex. And the challenge for this was that the client wanted to demonstrate, or us to demonstrate, that we could actually introduce 30% efficiencies in the running of the baggage. So, you know, we are now at that point of starting to simulate, just as Graham was showing on some great projects there. Never mind simulating construction, but it's also starting to look at the analysis of the operation as well. So we're really starting to bring a whole load of technologies together. But again, what's the quality of the data? How's it got there? Is it relevant? Let's not forget to use our brains, not let the technology control us. So very much, wow, what a lot to play with. Boy, I've got these sexy tools now, and they do all of this, and probably even more that we haven't even thought about yet. CDM, for instance. Actually, that movie just then, we are experimenting with actually safety on site, so how you actually do the sequencing and you can actually drive better safety through. So there's stuff which we're only just looking at now. But again, client, I didn't ask for that. Why am I getting all of this stuff? So there are loads and loads of uses at different stages and lots of different projects. So infrastructure projects, rail projects, highways. And of course, as an industry within the UK, we've got lots and lots and lots of plans of work because we all know how to do it our way. And our way is the best, isn't it? So, BIM bear bust. Shall we? That would be a good dance, wouldn't it? Actually, at CIC, we're around the table with all of the professional institutions, and we have agreed to converge to a single plan of work. So we're working on that at the moment, scope of service. So REBA slightly jumped the gun by releasing the BIM overlay, but they had to because of the pressure. But that essentially is a precursor to what you will see all of us converging to. So I represent ICE on that committee. But it very much reflects that we're moving to looking at the process throughout the whole life cycle, and I do apologise that it's still design construction centric at the moment. That will change. But it's looking at, well, what's the need? What are the benefits? What's the drive? What do I absolutely need at this stage one? Yeah. When you hand over that information exchange, I want what I've asked for, no more and no less. Don't give me lots of sexy stuff that I didn't pay for. You can do that if you want to at your own expense, but not at my expense. So, and that's how it's being controlled, and then we are looking at the OPEX stage of this at the moment. How's my time doing, by the way?
You're very close
Okay, I'm very close to the end. I will make sure I'm at the close. So each of the departments, we're doing workflows. MOJ, as Graham has referred to. There's a 27-foot-long process map of MOJ, which I've had a look at. It must have been great fun to put together. And I think only 25%, oh, Paul said it wasn't. Nightmare, was it? Not your kind of cup of tea. But only 25% of that is design and construction. The rest is all around the operation and the planning side of things. Reflecting this. Certainly within Atkins, we're putting in BIM execution plans. And although, again, it looks a bit sterile, but it's very much looking at the scope and the people side of things, how we want to relate with the client and with the supply chain, and kind of almost at the last is thinking about the technology side of things. And technology is hugely important. And I think a gentleman over here was talking about, well, what happens if some of us are still at level 1 and some are at level 2, or we're using Civil 3D or Revit. That it is really, really important to consider that at the start of the project and think, well, why are we doing this in the first place? What's going to work? What are the main drivers for us? There are mechanisms to do that. I think the government strategy is going to make it easier as we move along. I think I've just gone the wrong way again. So I shall sum up pretty fast now, but it is all information. It is just information. It shouldn't matter which bit of information it is, although we all like to be terribly possessive about our particular piece of information and say it's great. But you can see how actually it converges to essentially the sort of database, common data environment that Graham was talking about with BIM Extra. There's a lot of people who want to move that way, and it will move that way. Level 2 is kind of the baseline, and there's a lot of work to make sure that the database level 3 approach is going to work, but that will evolve. So very much in the GIS world, we've been familiar with this. So instead of a network and tangle of disciplines, actually it's trying to get to this single portal of truth. And that sort of model will work much, much better when we don't have a chasm between how we define buildings and how we define infrastructure. So with the PAS, what we're doing is we're making sure that actually BIM is fit for the wider environment and for infrastructure as well. It works in highways, and you'll see here there's already portals where you're actually using this data operationally, so simulating spills within the drainage network. Actually simulating whether it actually works in practice, but this is for the gritting in response to where particular ice patches are going to be. Oh, no, I'm on the wrong slide. The gritting here, so it's where there's going to be real problems on ice and where the actual supplies are and how efficiently they can get the lorries out. Same with the water industry. And the same with Crossrail. As I said before, Crossrail is very much being used as the model for HS2. And look how you've got data coming in from different disciplines, engineering, very much the geospatial world, and we have got, of course, the architects working on some great station design as well. But it is very much thinking about the end purpose as well. So the building assessments, they're able to actually monitor the buildings and any settlement, so that actually the project managers who are supposed to be supervising the site can be called out as an instance. So my husband's working on Whitechapel and got an alert 2 weeks ago because there was a building subsidence which exceeded the red. All the information was available to him. So 2016, level 2 BIM is here. What are you going to look like? Where will you be? How do you feel about that? Who's in control? Are you? I'd suggest these are the sorts of behaviours we want to see as entry level from our graduates. Thank Thanks very much.